We do something a little bit different, Gabe. We do interactive podcasts. So like right now we are recording and we also, we are in our community with our people. They put us a few questions together here, but yeah, I appreciate your time, man, and thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I'm down for whatever. Let's get it.
All right. So one of the first questions we got here, how do you mentally prepare for a big fight or a challenge that's coming up?
Um, I mean, from like I just take it like from a religious standpoint, and I'm just a devout follower of Christ, so I just just leave it up to him. I just ask above all else that his will be done. I do pray for some favor. I'm like, like allow me to be my best self out there and just let me be the person you need me to be when I'm fighting, win or lose. And I just like leave it up to him, and then just see what happens from there. I figure why worry about it so much, like the prep for it. I mean, of course, I'm training my butt off the whole time, but not always the better person wins. The person who wins is, in my eyes, the person who was supposed to win.
Kind of like an everything's meant to be type of deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. So going off the religious thing, I watched your career a little bit, and I've seen kind of halfway through your career where you kind of started to convert and you started to be more speaking with your religion and everything. How did the religion affect your fighting style and your mentality in that? Like, can you see I guess kind of like what you said, like everything how it's meant to be, but can you see a dramatic change, and what was that change in your fighting style and your mentality when you switched over to Christianity?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of weird because like I gave God props and I was like, yeah, shout out to Jesus, but it was more like I did it before I like really became like got really heavy into it, and I was doing that just kind of like as like a thing for my grandma because my grandma would
Mm.
just be like, always tell God thank you, but I really like it was like just something that I figured I had to say, but I didn't. Sounds bad, like not that I didn't mean it, but it didn't mean as much to me to say it when I say it. Now, like when I say it, it's like a point that it's like not something that needs to be said. And so like I haven't since I switched, I haven't won a fight. So it's like it sounds kind of weird. I know a lot of people will be like, "Oh, like God's not helping you or whatever." But like I in the fight industry, yeah, I lost to Gary and I lost to Battle, and both those weren't. I mean, Gary at least we won 3 rounds, and arguably people had me winning.
You gave Gary the fight of his life. I will say that. Other than Shavkat, you were right up there on one of the best performances against Gary.
Thank you. Yeah, even if the scorecards didn't say so, I just yeah, and going into that fight too, I really wanted to knock him out, and it wasn't like the greatest fight IQ moments for me because I wasn't trying to do anything besides land one and just put him like I could have probably did what Shavkat did and just had him against the wall, but I figured, I was like, oh, the refs or the judges aren't going to give me a win if I just grind him out, so I got to knock him out. So that was just, and it's hard to do when he's just like, bouncing from side to side and moving.
Yeah,
That's really good.
pretty
Um,
jumpy.
yeah, so and then it was so like I had this moment where well, he's like a friend of me, a friend of mine now, especially, but he was a chiropractor at the moment that I was going to go see, and he hits me up and asks me, right, like 7 days before I fought Gary, he's like, "Hey, you mind if he's like, when do you catch the plane to go out to Vegas?" And I told him, yeah, I leave for Vegas like tomorrow, and he's like, "Oh, you want to stop by my house? I have a table at my house. I'll give you an adjustment." And he's like, "You mind if I just pray for you?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, it's kind of okay, sure." Like I grew up and I was like, prayer's not bad, So if someone wants to pray for me,
It's
why
all
not?
good. Yeah.
And so while I was there though, he just started saying some stuff that was really weird, and in a sense that like everyone else like kept on, it was just something that was being said by a lot of people in from totally different circles of my life, and they were all kind of saying the same thing. They were talking about being a light, like they're like, oh yeah, you're like a light in the world and this stuff like that. And in the Bible it even speaks about that you need to be, spread God's light. So like it was it was really weird that he chose those words in particular. And so like he really listened, I really caught my ear and I was like re-listening to him. And then put me on his table before he like went for adjustment and he just started praying for me. And then I spent the next like hour speaking in tongues and it was like really crazy. And I had no idea what I was saying. I just like felt the most peaceful, electric, awesome feeling I've ever felt before. It felt like God gave me a hug himself. And so at that moment, I was like, oh man, like God's real, like really real. Like I know, like I kind of knew of him before, but I was like, I need to change everything in my life because this is the realest thing I've ever felt before. And there's yeah, I mean, if he's real, that means like hell's real, and I don't want to end up there. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna go ahead and just start following him 100%. And then like, I really gave him like right before I fought Gary, I just really gave my my whole life over to him. And then yeah, I mentioned it in a post recently, going into fight battle. I this last song that was played right before I walked out was a song about God's perfect timing. And I was like, oh yeah, it wasn't my perfect timing last time, but this time it's my perfect timing now. I'm gonna go whoop this guy. And I go out there and I was doing great for the first like 10 seconds and then I wasn't, you know? Um and then I remember going like, dang, well I guess, it's not this time. And I thought about that whole thing a lot, and I was on a roll before. I was on a win streak, and then I brought really God as the center point of my life, and then now I'm on like a two fight lose streak, and I'm like, I think sometimes like why did God decide to really put Himself in my path like at that point in time, and I mean maybe it's because He knew I was gonna lose the next two because like dealing with fights is especially in the career that I'm in, it's like it's really important to win and it puts a lot of pressure on you. And if he knew I was gonna win, then if I he knew I was gonna lose the next two, and I was in the situation that I am right now, going into whatever fight I'm gonna have next, I definitely feel I would have a lot more pressure and anxiety on me. But as of right now, I'm chilling because I know God's got what's best for me planned. And don't get me wrong, I'm going into my next fight to go win and put some food on my baby's table. But I know that regardless, God's gonna provide. So I'm
Yeah.
chilling.
Speaking of that, this is your first child, correct? I saw you had a couple of them on that Instagram post. It's like me and the team checking out for our next
Oh, yeah,
opponent.
yeah.
I
Those are
didn't
my
know if those were both your children or not, but
those are my nieces.
okay, okay, yeah. So how's fatherhood? How's the fighting life with the family life? How's everything going with that?
I mean, so she's only a month old, so we're still trying to figure out like balancing and seeing because it's my wife's first child too. So
Okay.
we're just trying to figure everything out, make sure that she's good too. Like, I didn't want to be just that guy who was just like, all right, bye, and not
Yeah.
help. So, yeah, I try to help as much as I can and be around, and yeah, just try to sneak out and get to the gym when I can. But and it's getting a little bit better. I'm starting to get into the gym after this, month. I'm starting to kind of creep back in the gym a little bit more. So hopefully by the end of this month, I'll have, be back more to like my regular schedule.
What's your current walk around at? Your weight, like currently?
By the way,
Yeah,
I'm a little heavier than normal, so I'm like 179, 180.
I gotcha. Is weight something you've ever really struggled with? I know a lot of fighters, they tend to struggle with their weight a little bit. And if so, how do you overcome those hurdles closer to fight week?
So like when I fight at 170, if I'm in camp and I'm training, I'm walking around at like 73, 74. So making 170 is like the easiest. I've showed up at all my fights at 170, like in the UFC, heavier than 55ers come in fight week, So I mean I'm really supposed to be a 55er. My next fight's gonna be at 55. Every fight outside of the UFC has pretty much been at 55. I just took a fight last minute at 170 in the UFC did pretty good. Won some fights at 170 afterwards, and was like, you know what? I like 170. I like not having to cut anything. I like going to buffets
Yeah,
all.
able to eat.
But it's my coach is always like, Gabe, 55 is your the division that you should be going to, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then that too, like losing two fights in a row. My coach was like, "You want to give 55 a shot?" And I'm like, maybe that's why I was supposed to lose the two fights at 70. Because if I didn't lose those two fights at 70, I was not going to consider going back down to 55. But I was having way too much fun. But I lost the two fights in a row. And like, like it was competitive. And then I think the one with Battle, I just got caught. I think I can beat both of them to be completely honest with you. But even with that, the fact that I lost two in a row, I was like, all right, I'll actually fight the guys that are my size. Because if you look at the fight, that I'm 5'10", walking around at like 75 at most, and usually, granted, I'm like probably 180 because I have training I usually do and stuff like that, and not getting much sleep and stuff. But yeah, everyone else is showing up like or so after we weigh in at 170 or whatever, the next day I was going from 170 to like 175, 174. All the other welterweights are getting back up to like 190. It's like
Yeah, they're blowing up.
yeah, everyone's just and I felt like I was strong and I wasn't getting bullied by anyone, but still, I should fight guys that are my size. It just makes sense.
So does that mean that in the next fight that we do see you in, it will be at 155?
Yeah, I mean that's the plan. Unless like they just were like, as long as I'm back in camp and stuff, I'm ready for whatever. And if they call me and they're like, can you make 170 in 3 hours? I'll be like, yes. And then, I'll head down there because I can do that for sure. But, um, de depending on what the fight is and stuff. But yeah, the whole goal is, especially like, man, if anyone I lost to at 170 needs a dance partner, like on 5 minutes notice, I'm like, just throw me in there. I got this.
So on that note, I saw that you were talking about a D-Rod rematch. I know that this fight's a little bit older, but you were talking about a D-Rod rematch, and his suspension's actually up this month on the 28th. So is that something that we could see, or are you gonna stay at 155?
Oh yeah, I mean, so what I told my manager was like my next one, I'm going back down to 55. And like same thing, we had our conversation. I was like, I'm a 55er, and he's like, yeah, you are. You walk around the same size as all of our 55ers in here, because 55ers walk around at like 85.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, yeah. So I don't think I'm going to 55. But I told him the same thing I just said right now. I was like, if anyone I lost to needs a dance partner, I will go show up just as I am, because it's not going to be like I already fought him like with the same size discrepancy already. It's not
Yeah.
like I got any smaller or anything. I'm just gonna go ahead and not cut weight again for a guy that I feel like I can beat. So I was like, yeah, if they need a dance partner, let me know. I'm there. And he was like, for sure.
Awesome. I like to hear that.
What was the turning point in your life? And like you may have been doing MMA before. What made you actually want to pursue it as a career?
Uh, and it was really so when I showed up to the MMA, my first MMA class, my friend like dragged me in there, and I really liked it. And then my coach asked me if I wanted to do a fight, and I did my first fight, and I really liked that feeling. And I didn't know if exactly I was gonna like go pro or anything, but I just knew I really liked it and I was gonna keep on going for it. And then after winning an amateur title and defending it a couple times, uh I asked my coach like what's next, and he asked me if I wanted to go pro, and I was like, I mean, yeah, let's just see how far I can take it, and that's pretty much been it since.
Awesome. So what are the kind of steps for like an amateur fighter? Let's say like somebody that just got into the scene, they have a couple fights under their belt. What is the kind of steps that they should take to move up the ladder to get in the UFC?
Um Man, you almost need like it requires some luck and stuff too, because like so if you're an amateur fighter, um you should stay amateur for as long as you can, get experience, go win a belt as an amateur belt, go win multiple belts as an amateur, experience fighting in different states, and you want to experience all that stuff when your record doesn't count because it gets wiped as a pro. So try to experience as much as you can. If you can, go get an amateur fight in a different country. Shoot, like there's like I did not even know that till like 2 years ago. There's like a uh amateur like country versus country team thing that goes on. And so like
Huh.
America, USA has an amateur MMA team and they go against other countries and it's like really high level amateurs that are fighting against each other and they have to wear I believe they have to wear shin guards because it's like a tournament thing. They have to wear the shin guards and they're wearing bigger MMA gloves and stuff like that. But
Okay.
you get to experience going like flying to a different country, cutting weight somewhere else and doing that. So like if you can do that all day. And then when it comes to being a pro, you just got to make sure you're winning. A lot of guys kind of do this thing where they fight a bunch of cans and because the UFC in particular, they're going to look at people with just not necessarily a win, like undefeated, but they need a win streak with finishes, and they're worried about that number more than who the guy is that they're fighting. So they don't really care too much if you're fighting against a guy who's got nothing but wins or nothing but losses. So a lot of guys take that route. I wouldn't suggest that exactly because then that's also why a lot of guys will go to the UFC and either getting onto the contender series or just like a contract where they have like, they're like 10-0, but they're just not ready to be in the UFC because all they fought are guys that weren't UFC caliber.
Yeah.
So I mean, you got to just make sure you're busting your butt and winning. Try not. I mean, of course, when your first fight, you want to go against a guy who's also debuting or possibly with a losing record, because there's a little bit of that like first pro fight jitters that go on for a lot of people, and it is a I love amateur MMA because they make the difference of an amateur MMA show and a pro MMA show aren't like that different. They feel pretty close besides the day before weigh-ins. As opposed to like boxing and stuff. Boxing amateurs looks like you're fighting in someone's garage. Like it does not feel the same at all. So that's I love that about MMA because it really makes you feel like it really feels like you're getting prepared for something. But yeah, once you're there, just keep winning, keep doing what you got to do to win. And then like yeah, of course they like the finishes, so I mean you gotta just leave it all out there every single time.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
What on your way up to the UFC, what was your biggest hurdle?
Um, Myself probably. I was hard-headed and stubborn, and my coach would always tell me to he'd be like, "All right, like I if I got hit or something, I'd want to get it back right away." And my coach would be like, like my gangster would be coming out, and he'd be like, we're fighters right now, right? We're professional. You just worry about the fight, and I would love turning things into fights, or into brawling matches, and I'm way more capable than that. So just my eagerness to fight and chuck them would be kind of like detrimental to myself because when you're kind of leaving it to chance of fighting in a phone booth compared to actually using all your skills, it's kind of I'm leaving things up to chance versus, actually doing what I'm capable of.
Awesome. I also noticed in one of your interviews you were talking about that you had an eye surgery. Before your vision wasn't that great, and then after the eye surgery it was 2020. So how did that play a big role in your UFC career,
Oh yeah,
fighting
that was
career in general?
yeah, no, that I was fighting and it was like I had really bad astigmatism actually too. So my depth perception was off. And like just I mean I probably shouldn't even been driving. Like if I was at a turning leg, trying to make like a left or something, I was like waiting for all the cars to come because I really couldn't tell if there was space for me to turn or not. And then like while I'm fighting, I wouldn't be able to tell like distance very well. I wouldn't be able to tell if punches were coming. So I was kind of just like moving my head in patterns and stuff and not really reading anything.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I almost forgot like that. Like if someone threw me their keys, I wouldn't be able to track them in the air, and I'd like fumble them or something. Yeah, like
Oh
my
man.
perception was really off. So I honestly kind of take it for granted now because yeah, my eyes are like awesome. I remember when I was fighting D-Rod, my coach was telling me he was like he wanted me to stay ortho, and he was like be ortho, stay away from his left hand. but the depth perception in my right eye is better was better than the one in my left eye. So I
Mm.
was staying southpaw the whole time, because I could see where he was at better, And I remember we were in the corner, and he was like, "You gotta go ortho," and I was just like, "Man, I can't see, bro. I'm gonna stay
Yeah.
there because it's my best shot. I can't see anything when I'm in ortho. Like I really couldn't tell." But yeah, no, big difference for when I'm able to actually tell how far people are away from me. Very important fighting.
Able to land those big shots.
Exactly.
Nice, nice.
Um, I guess one of the last things I wanted to ask you, how does it feel to actually make the big walk?
Yeah, it's it's pretty surreal, like at least for me, because I won a professional title in 2018 against a guy who was undefeated with like 7 wins, 7 knockouts. So we were both kind of on the UFC's radar, and I beat him. And then the UFC ended up calling me like 2 months after, and they were trying to sign me in 2018. But in that fight, I messed up my hand, and I need to get that fixed. And then I had been fighting with the messed up shoulder, so they end up calling me the day after I had shoulder surgery, and so everyone waits for that call, like for the UFC to be like, yeah, come and fight for us, and I like had to turn down the contract. So uh my coach was like, I got good news and bad news. What do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. Good news. And he's like, well, the UFC called me after I was like, and what's the bad news? And he's like, well, you had shoulder surgery yesterday. I'm like, yeah. So from going from that, I didn't really expect, uh, I was on like a giant 2 year layoff, and I didn't really expect my next fight to be in the UFC. I thought I was gonna have to go prove myself or something like that. And sure enough, in 2020, when I was able to get, cleared and be able to train again, they were the first. No, yeah, it was my first fight. So when I was making that walk, I was like, wow, like it really happened. And it was, yeah, man, I almost like it was almost a cry. It was like my eye got a little watery as I like, I parted the little curtains, and I look out and I see all the lights, and I gave my coach a hug, and I was like, dang, man. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, we're here. And he was like, yep, let's go get it. And I was like, yeah, it was a pretty awesome moment, man. Especially, I'm telling you, especially after telling them no the first time, I was just like, oh man, I thought they were gonna be mad or something and be like, oh no, no, you had your shot, get out of here, But it
As a
worked.
fighter, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just saying it all worked out.
Yeah. Um, as a fighter who's fought both in the Apex and in an arena, it's crazily different.
Yeah, I mean I honestly I like them both. I really love a crowd. I really love being in front of people. So feeling that energy is super nice, and all the oohs and the ahs, and just when you're walking out, everyone cheering for you. That's awesome, and I prefer it. But I mean, fighting at the Apex is cool too with nobody in there. Or even I fought at the Apex when there was nobody in there, and then I fought at the Apex when there's like 200 people or something in there, and even that's pretty cool because like you really hear everybody when you're in there and there's only a couple people. Like when I was fighting Johan in between the first and the second round before I knocked him out. One of the guys, he must have put a bunch of money in me or something because he was like, "Bro, like Gabe, don't worry, we're gonna get him in the second round. Let that round go." And I was like, all right, man, I got it, I got it, I got it. So, I mean, it's pretty cool too to experience that.
That's awesome. So one of the things you said that your first fight in the UFC was at the Apex during COVID, right?
Yeah.
Were you at the Apex for 6 weeks for the whole camp? That's the way that they did it, right? You were there for the whole camp.
I think was it 6 weeks, man? I don't know. It was a long time ago. It was I want to say it was like 3 or 4 weeks. Cause yeah, they had us in our little bubble. We had to be there for a minute.
What
Yeah.
was that like? Because you don't see a lot of people talking about that. Was it different to mess with the mental being away from the family and all your loved ones and everything, or how was it?
I mean, being away from the loved ones was like yeah, like a little bit. But at the same time, it kind of felt like I was having a sleepover with the homies. Just
Yeah.
like, and I remember one night. they got like my corners are awesome. They're my boys, but they got like a little wine drunk, and I was just like, man, I was sad I couldn't take part in it. You know, I was like, man, I wanna be a little tipsy with the homie. And but I mean, regardless, we were just having a really good time, laughing and joking, making the best of the experience. It was yeah, I mean, and we were just like going to the store and they were cooking meals and stuff like that. And then, like, I was watching them eat whatever they were eating because the UFC was giving us all of our meals. But I mean, yeah, it was actually pretty fun. If you weren't very close to your coaches and teammates, then probably wouldn't have as much fun. But I mean, we're a really close group of guys, so it was really fun.
Nice, nice. Well, that's all the questions that I have. Do you have anything for him?
Um, who could we expect you to see? Who could we expect you to see next? Or do we have a name, or are you just going with whoever they give you?
I mean, I really just go with whoever they give me.
Yeah.
I can't even throw out names. I honestly, my coach and my teammates always make fun of me because I like as far as MMA knowledge goes, is like people on the roster. I don't even watch fights super often. Um, and if I do, I'm not paying attention to the names really. I'm just like watching the actual like exchange of techniques that are happening in there. So I wouldn't even be able to throw out a name really. The only thing I saw recently was that Cerrone's back. And I mean, I love Cerrone. That'd be super cool to fight him, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. It
Hey,
probably
like we said earlier, man, God's timing is perfect timing. So,
and I mean he wants two of them, so they probably want to throw someone with a little bit more star power than me. So maybe if I'm able to get one in before his last one, I can make a little bit of noise for myself and then have Cerrone on his last one. Um, Not that just because I growing up, I was like, man, Cerrone's beast, and I just would love to. I mean, even if we just spar, that'd be super sick. I mean, fighting in front of everyone would be cool, but I mean, I'd be happy with just sparring with the guy. He's like a legend.
Be an awesome full circle moment, huh?
Yeah, no, for sure, 100%.
Awesome.
well, hey, man, again, I just want to thank you for coming on and um, all the best to you in the future. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Oh yeah, thank you guys for having me. Anytime you want, just give me a message and yeah, we'll work things out.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you.